Look at old photos of your parents or grandparents, the 1950s, 60s. Pay attention not to their smiles, but to how they lived. An ordinary factory worker, a teacher, a salesperson. One income was enough to buy a spacious house, a new car, support 3 children, and save for retirement. Mom didn't have to work. Credit was almost non-existent. Life was affordable. And now, look out the window. Today, in 2025, a family with 2 college degrees and 2 salaries is barely making ends meet. A house is an impossible dream or a lifelong mortgage bondage. Food prices are rising every month. Savings are burning through faster than you can earn them. You work more than your grandfather. You are more educated. You have better technology. So why are you getting poorer? Economists on TV will tell you that it's complex market forces, that it's the price of progress, or just inflation. But they're lying. It's not an accident. It's not the weather. It's a crime. And this crime has a precise start date, down to the minute. August 15th, 1971. On that day, the U.S. government committed the greatest theft in human history. They didn't break into your home. They did something worse. They stole the soul of money. And today, we'll go back to that day to understand exactly how you were robbed and why this robbery is continuing right now.
To understand the scale of the theft, you need to understand what money used to be. Pick up a dollar bill from 1928 or even 1950. It doesn't say Federal Reserve note. It says gold certificate or redeemable in lawful money. See the difference? Back then, a dollar bill was a receipt. You could go to a bank and demand physical gold or silver in exchange for paper. The exchange rate was rigid, $35 for 1 troy ounce of gold. This rule was established by the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944. The whole world trusted the dollar only because it had metal behind it. But gold has one disadvantage for politicians. It can't be printed. In the 1960s, U.S. appetites grew. President Lyndon Johnson wanted to build the Great Society, social benefits, while simultaneously waging war in Vietnam. Economists call this the guns and butter policy. It cost billions. There was no money in the budget. Raising taxes meant losing the election. What did they do? They started printing more paper certificates than they had gold in their vaults. They started cheating. They created paper gold that didn't exist in reality. The world wasn't blind. The French were the first to notice the deception. In 1965, French President Charles de Gaulle publicly declared that the dollar was overvalued. He realized that America was paying the world with unbacked candy wrappers. De Gaulle made a knight's move. He gathered up all the paper dollars France had, loaded them onto warships, and sent them to the United States with the demand, "Take your paper, give us back our gold." Following France, Switzerland, Spain, and Germany began presenting their dollars. A massive outflow of gold began from Fort Knox. The American treasury was visibly emptying. The system was bursting at the seams.
Friday, August 13th, 1971. As the country prepared for the weekend, Richard Nixon secretly gathered 15 of his top advisors at Camp David. The meeting was so secret that their phones were disconnected. No one in the world, not Congress, not foreign leaders, not bankers, knew what was happening. They had 48 hours to rewrite the rules of the global economy. The task was simple: declare a default on U.S. debt, but call it an economic rescue. Sunday, August 15th, 9 p.m., top-rated time. The popular TV series Bonanza was interrupted. The president's face appeared on the screens. He uttered words that would change your life forever. Listen carefully to the wording. I have directed Secretary Connally to temporarily suspend the convertibility of the dollar into gold. Remember that word, temporarily. Nixon promised it was a short-term measure to protect the dollar from speculators. That night, while you slept, the dollar died. What Nixon called a suspension was actually the closing of the gold window. From Monday, August 16th, no country, no person could anymore exchange their paper money for real value. The connection between labor and money was severed like scissors. Now the amount of money in the country depended not on the amount of gold mined, but on the desires of politicians. The restraining factor disappeared. Was it temporary? 54 years have passed. The window is still closed. The next morning, markets opened in chaos. Currencies began to jump. The inflation they promised to defeat hadn't disappeared. It was only just beginning to accelerate. The dollar became fiat, a currency based on decree, command, not on assets. And it was from this moment that the very chart we'll show you next began, the chart of your impoverishment.
What happened after the golden brake was released? There was no instant apocalypse. There was a slow, invisible poison that began to corrode the economy. Look at this chart. It's the most important piece of evidence in our case. From 1945 to 1970, two lines ran together: your productivity, how much you produced per hour, and your real wage. You worked harder, you lived better. It was a fair deal. Now look what happened exactly in 1971. The connection was broken. Thanks to computers and technology, you became 2-3 times more efficient than your grandfather, but your purchasing power remained at the level of the 1970s. Ask yourself, where did the difference go? Where are all those trillions of dollars of additional value you created? The answer is simple. They were stolen. The difference was taken by inflation and pumped into the pockets of those who own the assets. It was after 1971 that the ultra-billionaire class emerged and the middle class began to disappear. When there's too much money and no gold, money starts looking for a place to stay. It doesn't flow into teachers' salaries. It flows into real estate and stocks. Look at the home price chart. Before 71, a house cost about 3 times your annual salary. It was affordable. After 71, the chart turns into a vertical wall. Today, a home isn't a place to live, it's a financial asset for Wall Street speculators. You can't buy a house not because you don't work hard enough, but because you're competing with the endless printing press. And the final nail in the coffin of the old economy. Before 1971, America was a creditor nation. It had savings. After 1971, to maintain the illusion of prosperity without gold, the system needed a new type of fuel: debt. The U.S. national debt chart also skyrocketed right then. We've moved from savings capitalism to debt capitalism. The entire system now hinges solely on borrowing tomorrow to pay off yesterday's debts. It's a pyramid scheme, and 1971 is the year it was founded. There's a law in economics that's kept quiet in universities. It's called the Cantillon effect. It states the first person to receive new money gets richer. The last person to receive it gets poorer. Imagine a waterfall. When the Fed prints $1 trillion, the money doesn't fall equally on everyone. It pours into the very top of the pyramid. The big banks, Wall Street, and government contractors like Boeing or Lockheed Martin get it first.
At this point, the money is still fresh. Prices in stores are still old. The rich buy up stocks, land, and companies on the cheap. Months pass as this money trickles down the chain through the salaries of clerks, subcontractors, and drivers. By the time that printed dollar hits your wallet in the form of a paycheck, the market has already reacted. The prices of gas, food, and housing have already risen because the top has already spent their money and driven up demand. You get the scraps. Your salary is the same, but you can buy less with it. Inflation isn't rising prices. Inflation is a hidden tax you pay to keep the Wall Street party going. 1971 was the beginning of the experiment, and now we're seeing its end. The math is inexorable. The U.S. debt is growing exponentially, and it can't be paid off honestly. They have only one option: print more until the system collapses under its own weight. Paper money returns to its true value, zero. But that doesn't mean you have to lose everything. While the crowd sleeps, you have a chance to build an ark. History knows of assets that can't be printed at the drop of a hat from Washington. These are what are called hard assets. Gold that has outlived all empires, land that is no longer produced, and a new digital code that can't be counterfeited. In the next episode, we'll compare these assets. We'll find out what will save your capital when the music stops playing. Subscribe to the channel. Explore history before it's rewritten. See you in the archive.